Hello and welcome to another episode of History of American Trains. Today we'll be taking a look at the GG1. The Pennsylvania Railroad was experimenting with the P5 electric to see if it could perform well on their high-speed trains along the Northeast Corridor. However, the motors didn't meet the expectations that the PRR had because it suffered from reliability and traction motor issues. The high torque from the dual motors caused severe damage to the axles, and thus it bumped them to freight service. The PRR, still looking for a reliable and fast electric to pull their luxury passenger trains, turned to the New Haven's EP-3 box cabs. These electrics were very reliable and didn't have the traction motor issue that the P5s had. Using the EP-3 for reference, the PRR built two experimental units for testing. First was the Class R1, which had a 2-D-2 wheel arrangement, and second was the GG1, which had a 2-C+C-2 wheel arrangement. Tests began, and the GG1 proved that it had the better motor and could negotiate sharp turns, which led to the PRR to choose it as the P5's replacement. The GG1s used alternating current, which was fed via a 22-position transformer tap changer to paired traction motors geared to a quill drive, which outputted 4,680 horsepower, but sometimes could get up to 10,000. It has a length of 79 feet 6 inches, a width of 10 feet 4 inches, and a height of 15 feet. It weighs a hefty 475,000 pounds. On passenger service, they could reach a top speed of 100 miles an hour. However, in freight service, they were forced to go 90. Most GG1s had a Leslie A200 air horn. The exterior of a unit was very unappealing, with rivets used to hold the sheet metal car body. Seeking for a better look, the PRR rehired famous industrial designer Raymond Loewy to enhance the GG1's looks. Loewy made very subtle changes, but improved on the previous design. Instead of being riveted, Loewy suggested the car body be welded, which gave the locomotive a sleeker look. The Pennsylvania Railroad bought 138 GG1s numbered 4800 to 4938. The locomotives entered service in 1935 and would later run on other railroads like Penn Central, Conrail, and Amtrak. The GG1s became an instant success with its reliability and speed. They primarily pulled passenger trains, although pulled freight and mail trains starting in the 1950s. Almost immediately after entering service, the PRR completed an electric line from Washington, D.C. to New York City. To commemorate, the PRR ran a special train pulled by a GG1 number 4800 on January 28, 1935. It made a round trip from D.C. to Philadelphia, and on the return trip, it set a speed record, arriving back to D.C. in 1 hour and 50 minutes. This wouldn't be broken until the Acela Express was brought into service, making the trip in 1 hour and 42 minutes. The GG1 has shown up in more movies and advertisements than any other locomotive. Some odd jobs that the GG1s did include 2 funeral trains, one for President Franklin Roosevelt and one for Robert F. Kennedy, and helping the Flying Scotsman through the Northeast Corridor when it was on a USA tour. The GG1's reputation wouldn't be perfect for much longer, as on January 15, 1953, one of the most famous wrecks in Washington, D.C.'s history occurred. Pennsylvania Railroad GG1 number 4876 was southbound from Boston carrying 400 passengers. The third coach on the train cut off air brakes to the rest of the 13 cars, causing the train to be nearly impossible to stop in a short distance. This, along with a 5,500-foot descent, meant that the train would not be able to stop in time. The train smashed straight through the platform, destroying the station master's office and a newsstand. The locomotive skidded to the right and destroyed a steel pillar on the floor. The floor was not able to hold the weight of a locomotive and collapsed. 6 more coaches derailed behind the engine. No one was killed and only 43 people were injured. NBC News started broadcasting live from Union Station 67 minutes after the wreck occurred. At the time, this was the fastest live nationwide broadcast ever made. A temporary wooden floor was built over the hole so train service could continue. 4876 was repaired and continued service for another 30 years. After the wreck, the GG1s continued service for another 15 years with the Pennsylvania Railroad. With the creation of Penn Central in 1968, the GG1's future was uncertain. Many GG1s remained in daily service until the creation of Conrail. Amtrak had used them for many years until the AEM-7 replaced them. At this point, GG1 parts were hard to come by, and when cracks in the frame were discovered, all GG1s were retired. The last GG1 that was in active service ran on October 29, 1983 with New Jersey Transit. Tons of GG1s were saved and donated to several museums. Most famous of these was 4876, which was donated to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum. However, none of the GG1s are operational, as they have their main transformers removed due to PCB, a hazardous fluid, in the oil. It is unlikely that any GG1s will be restored to working order, as there are only a handful of places to run them. The GG1s live on as one of the most successful electric locomotives in America. Its reliability and speed was something few could match, which helped it stay in service for nearly 50 years. Its legacy will always be remembered. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to all the following people and sources for providing information and videos. Without their help, these videos wouldn't be possible to make. Next will be a mega episode where I discuss most of the early streamliners. Stay tuned.